Hello and welcome back to Profile Shots. I'm your co-host Landon Muonio.
And I'm Bradyn Petrek.
And today we're here to talk about influential Japanese movies and their American counterparts. For our first movie, we watched Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress. And for our second movie, we watched Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope by George Lucas.
We thought it'd be a good idea to start off with a synopsis of what The Hidden Fortress is. Since prior to this, I've never heard of the movie. And really, the idea of it is you're following along two, I guess, pilgrims would be kind of peasants. And we kind of follow along their journey. And it starts off with them kind of running away from a battle. And they end up finding these sticks with gold in them. Don't know why.
To hide the gold.
To hide the gold,
yeah.
They encounter this roaming like samurai soldier, and they kind of follow him back to the place called the Hidden Fortress, where there is this princess. And the whole idea of like the latter half of the movie is that we follow along in this journey of the samurai, the princess, and these two peasants as they try to get the princess back to like the safer land, since they're currently kind of in enemy territory.
There are a lot of similarities in between the Hidden Fortress and the original Star Wars movie. And I think that's obviously because George Lucas watched the Hidden Fortress and based most of the plot off of that movie. So Kurosawa was a big influence for George Lucas.
Yeah, you can see it with a lot of the themes and a lot of the characters kind of strewn without the Star Wars franchise. I think the most notable, and we kind of noticed this right off the bat, was with C-3PO and R2-D2.
Yeah.
Compared to the two peasants that are in the movie. These like two, although they don't take up as much screen time as the two peasants do. C-3PO kind of does the same job as the peasants, like one that always kind of battles on the other, and one's a little bit brighter, but we kind of see that.
Yeah, especially because one of them's tall and one of them's short. Yeah, and well, that's for both the peasants and the robots.
Yep.
Yeah, and they argue all the time, and the story is told. Both stories are told through those characters. I think that's probably what George Lucas wanted to do, is to have those two be like the narrators throughout the entire Star Wars franchise. The other, in terms of characters, the other similarities are the head evil samurai and Darth Vader. And the old grizzled samurai, the good samurai, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, right?
Yes.
They both have a long history of battling and backstory that's off screen, and then they fight each other, and the Darth Vader character, or that evil samurai, gets scarred and then comes back. And it's because the good samurai and Obi-Wan spare their counterparts.
I guess the other thing we could talk about is Princess Leia and her comparison to the princess within Hidden Fortress. You can see that they're both much more outgoing and strong kind of characters throughout both of the shows. For Princess Leia, you see that once she gets rescued from the Death Star, she instantly grabs a blaster and like solves the problems and starts shooting back or whatever. And they jump down the chute while everyone else is panicking. So they kind of have like this clairvoyance. And then we see for the princess within Hidden Fortress that she's a little bit mysterious at the start as well. But she walks around, the way she like sits, she sits very proper with her hands on her knees and her back straight up. Very like powerful presence. And I feel like you can kind of sense that in between both the characters. And she also, you see her often wielding like, I don't know, at the start, I think it's a stick that she like whips the peasants with.
Yeah.
And she walks through like the trees and whips them back at her. So she's like very, very powerful presence on the screen. And you can see that she is stronger than the characters that are around her, whether that's physically or just mentally sharper than them. So I feel like that's a big comparison between the two.
Yeah. The character of Han Solo is notably absent in the Hidden Fortress, but his character qualities are meshed throughout, the peasants and sort of, kind of, I would say maybe the samurai also has some of those roguish qualities. but the main like quality of Han Solo, is that he's, this dashing, debonair figure. But he also, is trying to make moves on Princess Leia. And although the peasants, they're cowardly, they're kind of scummy, they're not as dashing as Han Solo, but they do try to hit on the princess. So that's another similarity between those two movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess I'd like to highlight also like the greed aspect of the peasants in Han Solo.
Yeah.
Like purely out of greed. There's multiple times within Hidden Fortress where we see these two peasants, and they just try to break off with all the coin, and then once they're trying to escape, they get like attacked and they run back and they're like basically crying and begging for forgiveness. And I think it happens for sure like two separate encounters. The one that always comes to my mind is they have all the sticks with the gold in them that they found in the pond, load them up on the horse and they're leaving, and then they have to sit and wait for some reason. I think they're waiting till night or something. But they're like, I don't want to wait. So they pull all the horses up to the shore, and they get spotted instantly because it's daytime because they were too impatient to wait. They get shot at, and then they have to flee back. And then they're just groveling on the ground, and they just bring trouble back to the people. It's very similar to Star Wars in the fact that you'll often see like these panning shots, and then they fade in with like, I don't know if there's a proper
screen
name.
wipe. It's a screen wipe, or they like the camera. The transition is like a circle that draws in, or a pan.
Yep, or a pan.
A pan wipe. Yeah.
It's very similar in those ways, and Kurosawa uses them quite often. I mean, it's not every shot, otherwise it'd be very noticeable, but you'll see it when it's cutting in between like big sections, when it splits them up, and you kind of that is shared in between Star Wars and Hidden Fortress.
One of the most notable differences in the Hidden Fortress and in Star Wars is that Akira Kurasawa loves long takes. He loves long takes, whether it's like all the peasants, not just the two, but all of the peasants rushing up the stairs and then overthrowing all these guards in this castle, or like, pans throughout the forest and the mountains. There's one noticeable one, though. There's one noticeable shot, and it's like a 5-minute scene where the two peasants, they struggle to climb up a mountain, and they're just tripping on like rubble, and it lingers on them for like 5 minutes. It's obscene. I don't understand why Kurosawa did this. Obviously, he did it for humor, but then is that payoff all that great?
The shot gets even better when they do it a second time. Yeah. I don't think it was worth it. I remember I was doing something else at the time, and I'm watching it, and I get up and I like go to the bathroom, and I come back, and we're only halfway up this hill. Like,
I was like skipping ahead on the computer for like the 10 second. Like, this is going on forever. And then they get up to the top of the hill, right? They get up to the top of the hill, and this samurai is standing up here. He's like, "Oh, there's a secret passageway." Great. Why wouldn't you just use the secret? They could have had a 5-second scene saying, "Here's the secret passageway. Here's the difficult way to get up the mountain." But instead, we have a 5-minute scene, 2 5-minute scenes, right? Of climbing up a mountain of rubble. Inconceivable.
All I could think about was the poor actors, that this is like shot in the summer, and they had to do multiple takes, and they just had to climb up and down this
dirty and loincloth, ragged, no shoes.
You can see like all the rocks like falling down as they're going. Like they must got cuts on their legs. I felt so bad. Oh, it's all I could think about watching the scene.
Another one of the similarities between Star Wars and the Hidden Fortress are the use of swords versus guns, and then lightsabers versus blasters.
Oftentimes we see kind of more the noble characters. So like the samurai within Hidden Fortress, he always took to a sword, while all these other like lower figures or just like general infantry, they had their guns when they shot at them. But when it came to the samurai and like the bad samurai who got the scarring later on, when they're battling, we see that it's kind of this, everyone else step aside, we're going to battle, and everyone else kind of abides by that because these are like higher figures. And then in Star Wars, it's pretty similar as well.
Yes, yeah. Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, when they're fighting on the Death Star, are surrounded by stormtroopers, and the stormtroopers are ordered by Darth Vader not to shoot and kill Obi-Wan, and it's this this honor that they have to do these lightsaber battles. Obi-Wan also, when they're on the Millennium Falcon, talks with Han Solo, and emphasizes how the lightsaber is a more civilized weapon, right? And Han Solo, rebukes him and is saying, I love my blaster. I think this is, I would rather have a blaster than a lightsaber by my side. And in that period of Japanese history, that was the introduction of muskets and pistols, and it drastically changed the landscape of war in Japan.
One other final idea that we saw was the whole kind of general concept of being rebels within like the enemy land and then making your way to like safety. So for Hidden Fortress, we see this with the two peasants joining with the samurai and the princess. And the whole movie is them journeying all the way to the border to finally cross over to like the fiefdom, like the safer area.
So those are the differences that we found with Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress and George Lucas's Star Wars. You can really see how influential Japanese cinema is on not only American cinema, but the world cinema as well, and especially modern cinema, just because Star Wars is such an influential movie and has influenced Hollywood for, up until modern day.